Welcome to the March 6th meeting of the Human Services Committee. Ms. White, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris,
Present.
Councilmember Revelle,
Here.
Councilmember Reed, Councilmember Burns, Councilmember Harris.
Here. Seeing that we have a quorum and are ready to do our work, we will now begin our meeting. We will start off here. Give me 1 second. We will start with the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion?
I move for the approval of the February 6, 2023 minutes.
Seeing we have a second,
But I have a correction to make,
you have one correction. Great.
assuming it hasn't been changed. On page 5 of the packet, HS4, if you read the minutes, it looks like we approved HS4, but we tabled it to April 3rd.
And this is on page 4, huh?
It's on page 5 of the packet.
Discuss. Do we remember, it was moved to be, it was not a motion to approve, it was a motion to table, correct?
The motion was to approve.
Councilmember
So
Revelle, are
we-
you saying that there was a motion after it was moved for the body to consider or discuss it, there was another motion to table it?
Just a minute.
And that motion was not recorded? Is that what?
I mean, if you're on page 5 of the packet and you read HS4, the motion is to approve, right?
Correct, but generally, before the body even begins a discussion, there's a motion to introduce an item, right? So like we just did for the minutes, it was a motion and a second, and now there's discussion to correct. And what I'm wondering was for HS4, there was a motion by Councilmember Reed, seconded by you, was another motion made to then table it that was maybe not recorded?
Yes, I think.
So in this case, if Corporation Counsel Cummings, would the correct procedure be to table this until next meeting, until it's corrected? So that
No,
can
we
have
could,
the-
we could make the correction, but I would advise that we watch a video to make sure.
We gotta be clear.
And so that these minutes would have to go over to the next meeting and hopefully be
Recording in
corrected.
progress.
Hopefully be corrected for the next meeting.
Well, then should I rescind my motion? So I'm gonna rescind my motion and move that we table the approval of the minutes for February 6th until further clarification.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion on the table to table the approval of minutes. Let's take a voice vote. Do I have all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so that motion to table passes. And that brings us to public comment. And we have one person signed up online, or one person we'll take in person. Okay, Mr. Myers.
Anyway,
And, yep.
I'm Mike Myers from Ward 1, and I'm here to speak about the dog beach, the rules and regulations on the dog beach. The fees seem pretty high, higher than Wilmette. The second dog cost as much as the first dog. Again, that's very different in other communities. If you're out of Evanston, they're really, really high. $200 for each dog. So if you had 2 dogs, that's $400. For a lot of people, that's a lot of money. We talked a little bit about maybe having scholarships for those who need a little financial assistance, so I'd like to have that considered. It'd be great to have like a little Dog Beach working group, maybe, to be a part of decision-making. Because we're the ones that are paying for it. We're the ones that are out there who kind of know what's happening and would like to have a voice. There's a point here about K, the city manager or their designee may open or close a dog beach pursuant to subsection 711-4C. It feels like it shouldn't just be one person, the city manager. There should be sort of a group decision on when to close and when to open. I'm suggesting maybe the city manager, maybe the lakefront manager, someone from Parks and Rec, maybe this sort of working group for the dog beach to be a part of it. Right now, I think it's being cleaned up once a week. If you've ever been out there, it probably needs to be cleaned up more. I mean, the dog owners are doing a great job cleaning up their poop and putting it in our little orange buckets, but those buckets get full. Right now, I'm emptying those every morning. It might be nice to have a little help. There's glass, there's garbage, there's trash almost every morning, which is dangerous to dogs. So again, we're doing that, the dog owners are doing that, but it feels like especially if we're gonna pay these high fees, the city should be maybe out there twice a week. During the summer, maybe 3 times, because it really gets busy. And that's it. Claire?
Sure. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you very much. So it is absolutely wonderful. The Dog Beach, truly a huge amenity for the city, and everyone's thrilled to be back out there. So I just wanted to echo what Mike said about the fees. I know we can't change it now, and it's off and running for this year, but in the name of efficiency, if we could consider maybe amending for next year. So I believe Wilmette is $45 for residents, ours is $75, and then each additional dog is $9, where ours is $75, and then if you have 2 dogs, it's $75 and $75. So it's really expensive here, and we've moved to free beaches for residents. So I think it would be great if we could resolve this, not for this year again. I know we've started selling them, so that would be complicated, but it'd be nice if we could, while we're on this topic, not settle it maybe for subsequent years. And it's the same with folks from outside of Evanston, outside of Wilmette. They pay one time about the same as ours, but then each additional dog is $72, where ours is $200 and $200 for another dog. We want them to come to our beach. We don't want them to go to the Wilmette Beach. We want to bring people here. So I think we should really revisit that and consider amending it for the 24 season going forward while we're on this topic. And yes, also if we can have it clean more often, that would be great. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. And we have one person signed up for online comment, Darlene Cannon. Ms. Cannon, if you can.
Thank you, Darlene.
If you can, yep,
Thank you,
we can hear you.
Darlene Cannon, Second Ward. I'm calling about ordinance 24-02-23, the Evanston Fair Work Ordinance. I'm always concerned about fair pay for employees, and I supported hazard pay for the grocery workers. However, I can't support this ordinance as it's written. It will hurt our small businesses. This type of ordinance is for our formula businesses like Target, Jewel, Sam's Club, businesses with 50 or more employees. We must look at comprehensively at serving our small businesses. Our businesses are coming out of the pandemic, and many businesses are not even convinced that they're going to get back to where they were prior to the pandemic. It feels like that we're putting a squeeze on our local businesses and shops, and that this is an additional layer of bureaucracy. Like we're throwing a punitive wrench at our businesses. And I think that this should be reconsidered, and we should look at how Chicago has handled this sort of ordinance. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I think this concludes public comment. Ms. White, do we have any more people? Okay, great, thank you. Now, that brings us to HS1. May someone please, ordinance 25023, amending City Code 7118, regulations of Dog Beach. Will someone please make a motion?
So moved.
Great. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Ravel.
So some of the comments that were made just now, I mean, like how often we clean the beach, that's not part of what we're looking at? Is that oh, here comes somebody who's going to have the answers for us?
Hello, Audrey Thompson, Director Parks and Rec. So part of that would be Public Works. Right now, and of course, we did open the Dog Beach really, really early this year. And beach maintenance is usually once a week. And so opening the beach, the Dog Beach, really early this year, we are doing our best to get out once a week to do that maintenance. To increase it would be something that we really need to work with our Public Works department to do. And so we've already contacted Edgar to see if that's a possibility. But for right now, what we're doing is really the best that we can do. I don't know if this is the time to really address some of the other issues, but I can if that's okay.
That'd be great.
Yes, please.
So in 2018, the dog beach pass was $60. So even at $45 in 2018, our dog beach pass wasn't $45, it was $60. And so we went before the Parks and Rec Board several months ago, and that's why we asked to increase to $75. We also looked at municipalities that were Wilmette, Winnetka, other places, and their fees for individuals who lived out of the area, out of the district, was over $200. And so that's why the Parks and Rec Board settled on $200 for those dogs that were not Evanston, belonged to Evanston residents. Our Parks and Rec Department has chosen to allow scholarships for the Dog Beach Pass. So a person, if an Evanston resident, can get a Dog Beach Pass for half off. So that is in operation today. So.
And there was a comment about maybe a citizen group that would be part of consult with the city manager. And the only reason I mention that is because there's like a sailing group.
Right, so that's still outside of the Parks and Rec Board. So and I think that there are over 300 members of a Facebook page, and I think that's pretty much the same as the individuals who are part of the sailing beach. They, if they have any issues, they come to the Parks and Rec Board. The city of Evanston has a means by which to address any issues or concerns, and that's through our Parks and Rec board. And so we meet once a month with the exception of August. And so we invite anyone who would love to come and give us feedback to join us at that meeting. We do have a lakefront subcommittee. So that lakefront subcommittee is available for anyone who would like to come and express any issues regarding our lakefront.
Great, thank you. And I see Councilmember Burns has his hand raised. You can unmute Councilmember Burns.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Also, my comments are more geared towards the cost to access the Dog Beach. Do we know what it costs to maintain the Dog Beach?
That would be something that I could definitely get from our parks, our Public Works, because we at Parks and Rec, we do some maintaining as well. I can definitely talk with Public Works, and we can get that information and get that back to you. And I will say that because we've been closed for several years now, Even getting the information from 2018, we don't have a real good number for that now because we've only been open for now 6 days. So, I'm not sure that we can really pull together. We can give you some estimates, and I'm not sure how accurate that would be at this point.
Yeah, and I only mentioned it because I would, certainly be open to reducing the fee if we're recovering all of our costs now to maintain the dog beach, which is why I asked. And so, again, not saying we're, a public body, so we don't need to make it out ahead, but it would be great, especially for these type of things, to just cover the cost of having someone out there to clean up and whatever other needs that we have. And that's all, Chair. Thank you.
I would just warn us against reducing significantly. Just remembering in 2018, our fees were $60. And so we've only gone up $15 in 5 years. So if you look at inflation, that's a lot more than $15. So I think that's why the Parks and Rec Board was fine with resting on $75.
Okay, great.
And do you know how many people historically, we've historically had a scholarship
No.
opportunity? Oh, this is the first time this year?
First time.
Okay. And it's too early to know how many people?
This is actually the first time that we are offering scholarships along the lakefront. That's even for paddle boards, any of those. We're offering scholarships for all of those.
And for the scholarships, what are the requirements?
So you have to meet our program fee assistance. And so you can stop by any of our community centers that take the program fee assistance. That's 4 of them. You can check that out on the website. And that would mean that the fee would be half off.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. I have one question for City Manager Stowe, if he could come up to the podium. Yeah. I was just curious if you could speak a little bit to how do you have, I know we've only been open for a short period of time, but how you've taken into account how you make the decisions to open or close the dog beach.
Sure. Good evening, Chair, members of the Council, Luke Stowe, City Manager. And yeah, I do want to clarify Mr. Meyer's inquiry insofar as it's and those types of things. Of course, the city manager is going to consult Parks and Rec and Public Works and frankly even the stakeholders of the dog beach and so forth. I think sometimes we want to have the flexibility if there was some sort of event or emergency or storm that the city manager, in an urgent case or a time-sensitive case could then close the beach as needed.
Great, thank you. All right. I don't know. Councilmember Burns, you still have, is your hand still up? Is this a new comment?
Nope. I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, great. Seeing no other lights, let's take a voice vote to approve the motion.
Mr. Chair, you do a roll call because Councilmember Burns is remote.
Oh, yes. Thank you. All right. Can we take a roll call vote on the motion? Oh.
Councilmember Reed? Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye. The ayes have it, so that passes. Let's move on to HS2, review of Evanston Police complaints and comments report.
Committee Chairman, members of the committee, up here we'll review 2 complaints that were reviewed for tonight. The first one is CR 22-01. On March 24th, a complainant called the EPD about an issue they had at the Davis Street Station. The complainant alleged that he was being harassed by CTA employees because they posted a flyer about that individual's sex offender status. The complainant is registered on the state website. Less than an hour later, the CTA employee called and requested that the Evanston police respond. The original complainant was back at the station after he was told that he was not allowed to be there. They feared the complainant would become combative and potentially a disturbance. Excuse me. The accused officer advised that the information posted was public knowledge that CTA employees could post on their property, basically stating that the Evanston Police Department did not have jurisdiction over CTA rules of what could and could not be posted. CTA supervisor that was on scene further stated the complainant was not allowed to be on the property unless he was using the bus or train. He could not be on the property for anything other than transit purposes. The CTA employee did ultimately remove the flyer. The accused officer asked the complainant to leave the premises politely multiple times and advised the original complainant that the CTA did not want them on the property and they were to be trespassed from the property unless using transit. The complainant left without further incident. The complainant alleged that the accused officer was disrespectful, failure to investigate his complainant correctly, and did not problem solve the matter. That she prematurely sided with CTA management, and the complainant felt that they were being harassed by CTA staff. So the rule violations were rules 1, 2, 18, and 20. I would summarize those rules as adhering to other rules and basically customer service and efficiency by an officer. That complaint was reviewed by the Citizen Police Review Commission, was ultimately moved forward after being determined to be complete, thorough, objective, and fair. After patrol sergeant, patrol commander, and the deputy chief did not sustain any of the rule violations against the accused officer. It then was reviewed by the chief of police, who concurred that these rule violations were not sustained and unfounded, and there was no disciplinary action against the officer in this incident. With that, could I answer any questions about this? No? All right. Very good. I'd like to move on to, at this point, Department Inquiry 22-03. The accused officer was doing seatbelt and distracted driving enforcement along Howard Street. He observed a violation of distracted driving and stopped the driver. He issued 2 traffic citations. The stopped and cited driver was agitated, told the accused officer he intended to file a complaint for issuing false tickets. The accused officer advised that both violations were captured on body-worn camera footage, and that footage would be available via FOIA request if the cited driver so chose. The accused officer disengaged from the complainant and conducted a stop and concluded the stop after the individual used profanity against the officer. The accused officer did not author an incident report for the traffic stop after he was informed by the driver of his intent to file a complaint. The complainant responded to the Evanston Police Department a short time later, spoke to the patrol sergeant, and subsequently filed a complaint with the Office of Professional Standards. The complainant alleged the accused officer did not conduct a lawful stop. And again, the rules were 1, 2, 6, 18, and 20. Again, I would characterize these rules generally as adhering to policy, efficiency, and customer service. The patrol sergeant, or the initial sergeant that reviewed this, found all the allegations to be unfounded, with the exception of a policy violation for not authoring the report when told that the driver intended to file a complaint. It is a rule for Evanston police officers that once they believe a complaint is to be made or their star number and name is asked for, that they author an incident report about that incident. That was not done, and the officer received shift-level counseling and policy review for that violation. And then the deputy chief concurred with those recommendations. It then went before the Citizen Police Review Commission, who deemed it to be complete, thorough, objective, and fair, and moved it forward to a 7-0 vote. The chief of police then concurred with the unfounded rule violations and the sustained rule violation and shift level counseling for the failing to author a report during the stop. That concludes this review. Are there any questions I can answer? Yes.
So we often see, well, not often, but sometimes we see that shift level counseling. So what is involved in that? Is that just a conversation or?
Sure. So I would say that a shift level counseling can be characterized as probably, I would say some positive discipline. Shift level counseling is where basically generally the direct supervisor, administrative supervisor of an officer, and it's typically for lower level policy violations. They're going to sit down, they're going to review that policy, they're going to admonish the officer and expect basically that not to be done again. If this officer, for instance, if we got another complaint or it was revealed that the officer made the same rule violation, then they would probably be subject to something more formal. So shift level counseling is for things that are minor. It's almost like you want to coach up something a little bit more positive for things that don't have a lot of consequences behind it. And it's like the beginning part of progressive discipline. It's like the lowest rung.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. So I just want to be clear that if at any time an officer is told they are going to be reported or asked for their badge number, they are to to create an incident report?
Yeah, so there's a number of calls the Evanston Police Department will take that don't necessarily in and of themselves require an incident report. They might receive what is a code, which would be on the computer, the dispatch ticket, or in issuing citations does not result in an incident report. So if an officer is made aware that if somebody says, I'm going to make a complaint, or what's your badge and star number, which is basically saying I'm going to make a complaint, officers are then required to write an incident report, a formal incident report of what happened. And that is to document that exchange, that interaction, and in the event that there is an actual complaint, we have something to use for the investigation.
Great. Thank you, Commander Glue. Looks like we don't have any more questions. Can we take a roll call vote to accept the report and place on file? We need a motion.
I move for the acceptance and place on file the review of Evanston complaints and commitment report.
Okay, we have a motion to accept and place on file the HS2. Will you please take a roll call vote?
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed? Councilmember Burns? Councilmember Harris?
Aye. So the motion passes, and that moves us on to items for discussion. D1, Ordinance 24023, establishing Evanston's Fair Workweek Ordinance. I see Councilmember Harris.
Yes, I'd like to table. Do I have to move first? Okay, so I move ordinance 24023, establishing Evanston's Fair Work Week ordinance. I move to table the discussion.
We need the date, so.
May.
The packet suggests May date.
May 1st, yes.
Yes. So do I see a second? Okay, we have a second. And is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we take a roll call vote on the motion to table until May 1st.
Councilmember Harris? Aye. Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed? Councilmember Burns? Councilmember Harris?
Aye. So that passes and will be tabled until May 1st. Seeing we have no further business, I will now adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.